Welcome back to the Middle of Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Eden.
And I'm your other host, Peter.
Hey, Peter, how you been?
I am doing okay. You know, work continues to be busy, but living the single bachelor life, which I never really had much time as a bachelor, so I don't know if that's exciting or fun. What I will tell you is, as an almost 48-year-old man who's been married for 26 years, you know, it's not that exciting because I just come home and, like, I don't know, eat. I've been trying to do some more writing this week, read something, maybe watch something, and then go to bed at like 9:30 at night.
Oh, I mean, that's hard to beat. So what's got you living the bachelor life lately?
Well, so Alyssa's brother, Stephen, works for the Forest Service. They used to live up close-ish to us in Du Bois, Idaho. It is Du Bois, trust me. It's Idaho, so it's Du Bois. But he took a job a number of months ago. I can't remember exactly how long. Much better pay, and it's again for the Forest Service up in Fairbanks, Alaska. And
wow!
Lissa and Gareth scheduled a trip, and Sunday night took a red eye along with Jess, and all three of them flew into Anchorage. Spent the day hanging out in Anchorage on Monday. And then on Tuesday, took the kind of scenic train ride from Anchorage up to Fairbanks. And then they're going to be hanging out up in Fairbanks with my brother-in-law. And then they come back, I think, Tuesday. So,
well, that's exciting as heck.
Yeah.
I've never been to Alaska. Have you ever been to Alaska before?
I have not. But
I've always kind of wanted to.
It definitely looks beautiful.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It really looks stunning. When Cassie was, on the job hunt at one point in our relationship, there was a there was a job available in this like tiny little town way out in the boonies in Alaska. And I was like, Cassie, maybe you should take this job. Maybe you should take this job. Go be a librarian there. And she was like, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know. Be a cute, like, housewife? I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
They pay you to live there. It ain't enough to live on, but the government pays you to live there.
I mean, and at this time of year, you could enjoy the sun setting at 12:22 a.m. and rising at 3:16 a.m.
Who needs to sleep? That's what blackout curtains are for.
Oh yeah, according to brother-in-law and his wife, that's the whole house is at least all the bedrooms have been outfitted with blackout curtains because it never during the summer. It never truly gets dark. It will kind of get to that, that dusk sort of just as the sun looks like it's going down, but it's still definitely bright enough to see, and it stays that way. And then, at about 2:30, it starts to lighten up, and then at 3:15, the sun's coming up. So, but other than that, like I say, just kind of working and trying not to feel too lonely. I've been here at home alone. It's quiet. But what about you? How you been?
Surviving with school out for the summer and summer classes happening. My job has changed. Finally, the project that we've been working on is done. So I started a new project today that's going to take all summer basically. And I'm excited about it. I think it should be really engaging. I'm going to end up being a lot more forward-facing than I have been in my position for the last couple years. I'll be doing a lot of trainings and stuff, but that's kind of fun. Okay. The big thing is, some of our listeners may know if they're in education or other IT-related situations, there's a DOJ ruling that came out in April that said that all educational websites, both forward-facing and password-protected, have to meet the WCAG accessibility guidelines by April of 2026. So basically 2 years from when they made this ruling. They made a similar ruling about a decade ago, but it was only for public websites. So like the website for your university or the website for your publisher or things like that all have to meet basic accessibility guidelines. But the online textbook itself didn't necessarily need to if you were a book publisher, or in our case at the university, the inward sites like the course sites in the the learning management system, the LMS, did not necessarily need to meet accessibility standards according to the ADA. But the Department of Justice said, no, dog, that's not good enough. Every website needs to be accessible to those with disabilities.
Sure.
So that means we have a long road ahead of us for the next 2 years, as we have to convince all of the faculty, some of which are very game and excited about it, some of which who are already doing it, and many of whom I believe will be recalcitrant, to say the least, that no, you need to do these very particular and certain things in order to make your site accessible to any students with disabilities. And they'll be like, well, I don't have any students with disabilities in the semester. And I have to be like, I don't care. You have to meet these
Right.
guidelines anyway, because it's the ding-dang law. So I am working this summer to create all the training for when people come back in the fall to be like, okay, you've got till April 2026, but don't wait that long. Start now. Here are our guidelines, and here is this program we're creating to encourage people to be early adopters. We're going to, we have a cute acronym for it. We're going to build like a hall of fame on the website where you can see who the earliest adopters were who are doing this work to try to, light a fire under some asses. So that's what I get to do this summer, is build a program from scratch. Well, not build, steal a program from another university who's told us it's okay for us to basically steal their program and change the name.
Perfect.
So that's what
As
I
you
get to do
should.
this summer. So
That sounds interesting, at least. I mean, I think it could be interesting, right?
yeah, I'm excited about it. Accessibility is something I care a lot about. I've been on a task force at the university and working for the last week or month to write this big report that's going to a bunch of leadership at the university about the state of accessibility right now and what needs to change and what recommendations we as a group have. And it's rewarding work. I'm excited to have something to really dig into this summer and make a lot of, videos and workshops and websites and all that sort of stuff. Gonna have to really brush up on my Drupal, which I'm not really looking forward to because apparently, what's that?
I just am. I have heard things about Drupal.
I mean, it's just website stuff. It's just how you.
I know.
The problem is, I'm an old soul who has used Drupal in the Drupal 2 and Drupal 3 days. Apparently, we're up to Drupal 10. And I was talking to my boss about it. And the biggest complaint that she has with Drupal 10 is one that I think will also be a problem for me. They basically never want you to ever see the code. They do not want you to look at that HTML at all. It's only the WYSIWYG editor. And you're like, no, I'd like to see the code. And they're like, we don't want to show you the code, though. And you're like, show me the code. Show me the code. So it'll be interesting to dig my hands into Drupal again and see how that goes for me. But we'll see.
Nice.
I'm excited. Anyway, what you been up to? What you been checking out? Anything fun?
Not a whole lot. I've been playing some more Cyberpunk 2077. I am at that point in the game where, and I happened to see something, I think it was probably on Reddit, where apparently there's some setting I can go in and change so that every time I finish a quest, it stops telling me to meet Hanako at Embers. Because
you're at that point in the game where you're meeting Hanako at Embers. Okay, you are
Yes,
very close to the end of the game if you wanted to be.
Well, so that's the thing is I went to go do that, and I appreciate this, and I appreciate when games do this, because I went to go and start that quest, and I got to Embers, and I appreciated that the game popped up a, hey, FYI, point of no return. And I
Yo,
went,
dog,
whoa,
go finish.
time out. I have a lot of stuff I still want to do. I had not even started any of the Phantom Liberty stuff. So I kind of went and cleaned up all of the other sort of active quests in Night City that I had. And then I started the Phantom Liberty stuff. And then I kind of got that going. And then I got to the point where I can leave Dogtown And so I'm kind of back and forth in between Dogtown and still doing some of the stuff outside.
Dogtown's
but
cool.
It is.
It made my computer chug a lot in ways that game did not before. Like my computer could handle that game pretty well. I loaded up Dogtown and it was like, okay, I'm gonna try real hard here. And I was like, come on, little buddy, you can do it. Just show me the game. We can do it together.
Yeah.
Especially that big set piece that starts when you first like get into Dogtown and like then the plane crash happens. That big set piece. Whoo! I thought my computer was gonna take off into the atmosphere. Those fans were spinning so fast.
So, it is, and we talked about this before. That is a really good game. I mean,
it's real fucking good.
They have turned it into. I think, now, granted, I don't play nearly as many games as other people, so someone could try and correct me and I'd tell them to go piss off because this is all just subjective and an opinion. But I think this is I think Cyberpunk 2077 is like a pinnacle of modern, role-playing games on a computer. Like, really. I mean, I agree. This is like a high watermark for the genre, for the industry, for really video games, I think, in general.
It's astonishing how good of a game it is. And I played it pretty soon after release. It was still pretty good back then. The biggest problem was it was not ready to come out. And I think there was also a big disconnect between expectations and reality from the fans. I think they wanted a game that was not necessarily the game that CD Projekt promised them. Although CD Projekt did make some promises I don't think they necessarily followed through on in that first version of the game, I still think that they tried their darndest. It just wasn't ready to come out yet, but I'm really impressed with how much they've cleaned it up and really made a really tight and compelling and interesting game. And I know that I've read I've read a few interviews with the guy who's currently the head of the team that's working on the sequel and that did Project Liberty or Phantom Liberty. Because it's that team. They basically the team kind of broke up after the first game came out because they were like, we're going to keep a core team on this, cleaning it up. The rest of the team's going to go start work on these 18 Witcher games we've announced.
Sure.
And that core team kind of reformed, got some new blood on it, got a new lead who was the lead for Phantom Liberty. And I've read a few interviews with him where he's like, the culture was bad. The culture during that production of that vanilla game was terrible. There was a culture of overwork. There was a culture of crunch. And we endeavored to make sure that does not happen here anymore. I can't speak to what's happening on the Witcher side of things. Those guys are their own studio. They're their own little teams. But here we try our damnedest not to crunch, and the game will come out when their game is ready to come out. And I was like, you really cleaned up a good game and made it a great game and put in an extremely good expansion that I mean, I mentioned it on when I was playing it for the first time. That expansion doesn't feel like it has a right choice to make. There was a choice that felt like the moral choice for me and the character that I built, but it didn't feel good. It felt pretty bad at the end of that. And I was like, okay, you've nailed it. That's the way a Cyberpunk game should feel. So I feel like this guy, we're leading this team. I'm excited to see what they do next. I really think it has the potentiality to be something special. If it's as good or even maybe better than 2077 is.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of hinted at what I would say, and it's not a problem and it's not a complaint. My biggest roadblock in this game is that it is a dark game. I mean,
it's a cyberpunk game, and
the world is super fucked up.
It's a cyberpunk world par excellence.
Yeah, and I mean, they do not shy away from that. And so, quite honestly, I have to be in a particular headspace to be able to play this game. And so generally what will happen is I'll have some free time on the weekend and I'll get into it, and then I'll start to kind of get into that headspace, and then I can play it for a couple hours. But during the week, I mean, again, I've had plenty of time this week. I could have played it Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. I didn't play it any of those nights because I played it on Sunday, and that was about enough. And I need a week off before I can go back in, because while it is a very good game, it plays well. I'm fortunate my new PC runs it beautifully with everything maxed out. And so it runs great. I don't have any issues with that. But thematically, I have to get to a place to be ready to enjoy it. And so I haven't, again, I've been playing it in spurts, and it's been taking me, weeks and weeks to get through it because, again, I'll play and then I got to take a break just because it is thematically a very mature game in like the real sense of the word mature, not like, oh my gosh, there's boobs, but like, no, it's asking.
I mean, oh my gosh, there are a lot of boobs too, but
yeah, but that's not the thing. The thing is the fact that it is asking you to participate in a world where there is no black and white. Everything is just different, muddy, nasty, filthy shades of gray.
Yeah.
And you've got to be ready for that. And I think that that's what it should be. I don't want it to sound like I'm saying, gosh, I wish that you could be a goody two shoes and the savior of the universe and all that, because that wouldn't be a compelling game for this world.
But there's plenty of games you could play where you go do that. This is a game where your protagonist is compromised. The situations in which they find themselves are constantly compromised, and they're constantly being tugged between different power brokers, all of which are gray in their morality at best. And it makes for a really compelling game. When you finish, we're going to have to do like a little spoiler cast and just talk about, even if it's just part of an episode, talk about your feelings on the game and the choices that you made and the ending that you got. Because I'm very curious to talk with you about your ending, your V, what happened in your V's life.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting. Other than that, not a whole lot. I did start reading the next book in John Scalzi's Old Man's War series. Mostly I read it because, okay, listeners, I have problems. I'm going to give you a short story here. I am a tech nerd. I like tech, and it's one of my, shall we say, vices. I think there are much worse vices I could have than liking nice new technology. But I also try and be fairly practical. I am mostly an Apple person in the Apple ecosystem, just after having been a Windows person for the majority of my life. Still, obviously, have a Windows gaming PC, but I spend most of my time on my iPhone, on my MacBook Pro, on iPads Pro, which I have. But the one I used the most, the iPad I used the most, was my 18-inch iPad Pro from 2018. So, I mean, come on. I've been using this thing for 6 years, almost every freaking day. I think that that's pretty good. So when they announced the new iPads Pro with the M4 processor and OLED screens, I thought to myself, you know what? It's time for me to get a new 11-inch iPad Pro because I do use it to read, to take notes. I do a lot of writing on it. I use it. Do I need the Pro? Probably not. But do I want the OLED screen? And do I want to do that for myself? Yes, sure, I do. So I ordered it on the day it was announced. Now, the particular configuration I ordered, it wasn't going to come until the second or third full week of June. But in the way Apple tends to do, they'll tell you, here's your ship date, and then they're really good at this little psychological trick. You'll get a notification, and it's almost always going to, unless you're getting something from Apple on the day of release, you're almost always going to get it sooner than when they tell you you're going to get it. That's just, again,
nice.
It's a great little manipulative thing that they do, but it's just like, it's a little, you're like, oh, look, it's coming early. So I ordered this iPad Pro, and then all of a sudden I got the notification. It's like, oh, update on your order. It's coming a week early. So it was going to come this week. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my wife, and she uses her MacBook Air a ton. And now that she's home and she's building up a private voice studio, she needs to be using it quite a lot. So we're in the process of setting up a home office area in the music room where the grand piano is and stuff. And I said to her, hey, you've got this 13-inch MacBook Air. Would you like the 15? And she went and saw it at an Apple store, and she was like, ooh, yeah, I do. I want the 15. And so she got home, and I was getting ready to order that. Well, that was going to be delivered this week. And then I realized, both of these things are going to be delivered a week when I'm at work and no one is at home, and Apple absolutely requires a signature. Understandably.
No.
So last Thursday, I finished work a little early. I was in surgery, and I got home, and I pulled out the Apple Store app on my phone for fun, and I went and looked, and lo and behold, at the City Creek Center in Salt Lake, they had my particular iPad Pro configuration in stock. And they had the particular MacBook Air configuration for my wife in stock. So I said to my wife, I said, hey, how crazy would it be if I dropped the boys off at swim at 3:30 and then just drove down to Salt Lake? And she kind of looks at me and she goes, does that mean I get my computer today? I said, you better believe it. And she's like, I support this decision.
So, she's like, get in the ding-dang car.
So last Thursday, I had 5 hours in the car driving down and back to Salt Lake. So yeah, needless to say, I was in Salt Lake for 15 minutes, walked right into the Apple store, said, I'm here to pick up, the order. Here's my name. And lady tapped something on her little iPhone, and all of a sudden the back door opens up, and out comes another one of the workers with an iPad Pro box and a MacBook Air box, and they handed it to me, and I turned around and walked out. Really, the whole point of this story was it was a great opportunity to get back into John Scalzi's Old Man's War on audiobook. So I cruised through most of book 2 in that 5-hour drive. So I've been enjoying that. I plan to continue that series. They're fairly easy. They're fairly quick. So I'm working on that. The only other thing that is worth mentioning, and in part because we have talked about this band before. Eden, do you remember the band Thou?
Oh, yeah. I remember Thou.
Thou released the new album last Friday. Umbilical is the title. And for those who aren't familiar with Thou, the best way I would describe them, unfortunately, does require some references to other bands that you probably haven't heard of either. But let's just say you take some doomy, kind of sludgy music, metal, and then you stick it in the Louisiana bayou and you let it rot for a while. That's Thou. Their music just has this grimy, just nasty, kind of filthy feel to it. And on this most recent album of theirs, Umbilical, it is much less a doom/sludge album and much more a hardcore/punk album in the style of Thou. Shorter songs, quite a bit more aggressive, and it is a really, really good album. So I've been listening to the hell out of Umbilical by Thou and strongly recommend it. But again, just know it is kind of filthy sounding. Like it is music that when I play it at work, as I am wont to do, I'll get side eyes. We'll just say it that way. So, but it's a good album. I would definitely check it out. But what about you? What you been up to these days?
I have not been up to a ton. Lots of just hanging out. I have been playing a couple things to mention. I've been playing a new game called Wildflowers. It was part of a Humble Bundle for like Pride or something like that, which had a bunch of like cutish games in it, only one of which I already had. So I was like, yeah, why not? I'll buy it. And this was one that had been on my wish list for a while. It's like sort of a farming sim, like a Stardew Valley or something like that, but it has a little bit more of a story, not quite to the level. I have talked at length on this podcast about why Harvestella was so freaking good, and that's because that was just a Final Fantasy game with a farm stapled on its hip. But this is more farming, more like life simmy, but it does have a pretty involved story. And it's interesting because you play as a specific person who already has a name and a personality and all those sorts of things, rather than it being like a self-insert, which is normally the case with these kind of games. And you move back to the island your grandma lives on because she's getting sick, and you just lost your job and your fiance over the course of a week. So you're just like, well, I'm gonna go help take care of grandma. And you start farming, things are cute, it's kind of fun, and then you find out your grandma's a witch, and you too are touched by the magic. So you are inducted with the other witches into their coven, and that's kind of where the action kicks off. There's a bunch of story stuff that's happening right now. Right now I'm embroiled in an election situation where somebody's running against the mayor and the mayor really seems like he sucks, so I kind of want him to lose, but I don't really like the guy who's running against him. It's kind of interesting. I'm really enjoying it. Cool. But yeah, it's just like you plant some plants, you water them, you take care of your chickens, you go mining for a while, you walk around and talk to everyone so you can raise their relationship levels. It's kind of fun.
Nice. That's awesome.
And then the only other thing I'll mention is I don't think I mentioned this last time. I think I've read it since the last time we chatted. So I talked at the start of the year, end of last year, about how I got really into I'm in Love with the Villainess, right? Did I talk about this on the last step? Oh, yes. Well, I finished that. It's great.
Oh, nice. Good.
Finished it. It's incredible. It was very fun to see things from Claire's perspective. And you know what? It's still one of my favorite stories that I've read recently. So I haven't started book 2 yet, but I'm thinking about it. Just been reading a lot of comics and stuff and just kind of hanging out. So that's kind of where I'm at. Not a whole lot to mention.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, but that means we should move on to the main event for the day. And I have a goofy thing planned that you don't even know what it is.
No, and I'm excited.
So I did mention we're going to do a bracket. So let me share my screen with you. We are going to do a bracket of action movies that I for sure have seen all of these. You've probably seen most, and you at least know what these ones are. And that's what we're going to do. It's some action movies. It's mostly 70s to 2000s. Nothing like old, and nothing like fresh. I also tried really hard to not put any ringers on here. You'll notice Fury Road is not on here, or I would just be like, I mean, Fury Road wins. I guess we should figure out what the runner-up is. So I didn't put anything like that I was like, that's number one with a bullet. So it's a pretty diverse list. I'm gonna just hit randomize a few times here, boom, and we are going to go live. Save this. All right. So our first matchup. We have Casino Royale, the James Bond reboot starring Daniel Craig versus Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie rom-com action adventure. Peter, which of these two movies do you like better and why?
I don't know if I've seen Casino Royale start to finish, so... I don't know.
Damn it.
My gut tells me that I want to pick Casino Royale over Mr. and Mrs. Smith because while I liked and enjoyed Mr. and Mrs. Smith the first time I watched it, I feel like my gut tells me it is a lesser movie. But I really don't think I've seen Casino Royale start to finish. I've seen lots of parts of it, but I've never seen it start to finish.
I'm with you there. I think Casino Royale is the better movie. You should watch it. It's one of the best Bond movies. That's why I put it on here.
I have such a hard time sometimes sitting down and committing to a movie. So
I hear you. I am in a Discord with a bunch of people, and in the TV and film section, they were talking about James Bond movies earlier today because somebody just finished a watch through of all of the Bond movies over the past 3 months. Because it takes you that long, because there's 25 of them suckers. And apparently that last one that came out, Skyfall, is maybe the best one. But I haven't seen any of the Craig ones since Quantum of Solace. So maybe I need to just sit down a weekend or two and just run all of the Daniel Craig Bonds. But for my money, Casino Royale is really good. And I think it wins over Mr. and Mrs. Smith, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like I said.
Yeah, I do want to start the tournament. There we go.
I would not disagree with that.
All right. Next up, this is a hard choice for me. We have Highlander versus Point Break.
I can't. You're going to be so disappointed in me. I've seen a lot fewer of these than you think. So man. I don't think I've seen Point Break.
Well, have you seen The Fast and the Furious?
Yes.
Then you've seen Point Break. Just imagine that they're surfing instead of cars.
That sounds, like I could be down with that.
Here's the thing. I love Point Break. I think Point Break is very good. But I also kind of love the Highlander. I don't know, though. I don't know. I think I'm going to give it to Point Break, ultimately. I think...
Because here's what I'm going to say, is hearing you talk about them makes me go, oh, I want to watch Point Break now.
I think Point Break is very good. It really is just when they made Fast and the Furious, that was just them saying, what if we made Point Break, but instead of surfing, it's cars. But the vibes are almost the exact same. There's a lot of iconic scenes in that movie. There is a scene that everyone has seen where Keanu Reeves is lining up the shot and he's almost ready to take it, but they've built a brotherly love between him and this criminal. So he takes his gun and he shoots it into the air as he's like, ah, because he knows he can't take the. It's great. Point Break's so good. I'm going to give it to Point Break.
All right. I like that.
I like Highlander, but Point Break takes it. All right. Next up, we have Harrison Ford classic Air Force One versus Zack Snyder Slow Down Fest 300.
I mean, for this one, for me, it's pretty easy. It's Air Force One. And I don't know if that's because I think part of it for me, if you had asked me, I don't know how old 300 is. If you'd have asked me years ago, maybe I could have made a case for 300. But at this point, Zack Snyder's shtick has just worn so thin for me. And he really, like, while he does, I think, a good job creating interesting visuals, they all feel eventually very samey, and it doesn't take long for me just to be tired of it. Whereas a little Harrison Ford Air Force One action, I go back to that every day.
Yeah, Air Force One's a classic. I still have not seen either of those Rebel Moon movies. I don't know if I ever will.
I mean, I listened to both of the Flophouse episodes about them, or maybe they only did the first one. Either way, it sounded so bad that I was like, I think I have better ways to spend my time.
You know, that's true. All right, next up, we have Escape from New York, the Kurt Russell classic, versus Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy's big starring turn.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's because, again, Eddie Murphy's general shtick has worn so thin on me, or just the fact that I don't know that I've ever seen Kurt Russell in something and not liked him, but I gotta give it to Escape from New York personally.
Here's the thing. I'm a sicko for John Carpenter. I think John Carpenter is one of the best directors that has been doing weird genre stuff for the last 50 years. I think John Carpenter's incredible, and I think Escape from New York is one of his most fun movies. It's not his best movie, because that's probably the thing, but Escape from New York is pretty good. It's real good. And like is so important foundationally to so many things that follow it. Like without Escape from New York, you don't get Metal Gear Solid. And without Metal Gear Solid, you don't get Guillermo del Toro being a character in Death Stranding. So like, really, like, thank you, John Carpenter. You made it so Guillermo del Toro could be in a video game.
I mean, there's the direct line right there.
It's 3 degrees of separation. All right. Next up, we've got Steven Seagal classic Under Siege versus Jackie Chan's first big breakout role in America alongside Chris Tucker, Rush Hour. Who are you giving it to here?
I mean, this one's easy. I gotta give it to Rush Hour because
Under Siege sucks. It's not a very good movie.
Everything with Steven Seagal sucks. Like, Steven Seagal sucks. I mean, did you see the recent thing of him getting some award in Russia? Like, he's such a gross, just, he's so bad.
I do want to watch that movie where he, like, gets deputized as a cop, like, in real life. This is a documentary, and, like, goes for ride-alongs with the cops, because that sounds like a train wreck. Yes, I do kind of want to watch that. But Rush Hour, that's a Stone Cold classic. It's great. I love Rush Hour. There's a reason they made 2 sequels to that. Under Siege only got 1 sequel. Rush Hour got 2. Maybe a 3rd. They're talking about it, but I feel like Jackie Chan is too old. But I don't know. I don't go here. All right, next up, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando versus The Warriors. Come out and play. Who are we giving it to here?
I don't know if I've seen The Warriors. I love Commando. I think, Arnold, that's kind of classic Arnold era.
It is, to me, prototypical Arnold.
Yeah, it is. Plus, as, I mean, isn't Alyssa Milano his daughter in that?
You best believe she is.
I mean, again, child of the 80s and 90s, anything with Alyssa Milano is going to get my vote too.
I got to agree with you. The Warriors, really funny when they're on the rollerblades fighting each other. It's worth seeing for that alone, but Commando's a better movie. It really is wild.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we've got a classic, Bullet. Steve McQueen's Bullet. the car chase where 11 hubcaps get lost from one car during the course of this car chase. Don't worry about it. Versus,
Don't count.
might be nine, but I did count one time. It's more than 4. Versus Nicolas Cage, star turn, Con Air.
What do you think about this one? Because here's my confession. Never
You've
seen
seen neither of
Bullet.
these.
And I've only seen bits and pieces of Con Air when it was playing on basic cable on the weekend in the call room at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. And I was coming in and out of the call room. So that's, you're going to have to do this one for us.
Here's the thing. There are ones that Bullet could beat on this list. I think Bullet is a very cool movie. As much as I was joking about the car chase where it loses too many hubcaps, it's if you're not focused on the hubcaps, it's a really cool, tense car chase through the hills of San Francisco. Very cool. But you know what's cool? When the prisoners take over the aircraft. What if Air Force One, but it's the cons? And I'm giving it to Con Air. It's got to take it.
There you go.
Now here is kind of a hard one for me. Okay. We have Drive, the Ryan Gosling film with the famous scorpion jacket, versus Die Hard, the Christmas classic.
Christmas classic.
My heart says Die Hard just because my wife and I watch Die Hard nearly every Christmas as a tradition.
Okay.
But Drive is a real good movie.
I got to go with Die Hard. And part of it, again, is you've got to, there's no question that as we're doing this, there is nostalgia that comes in. Just mentioned Alyssa Milano in Commando. For me, Die Hard was one of these movies that had our parents known that I was watching Die Hard at Warren Petty's house, they would have flipped their shit because I was far too young to be watching Die Hard. But watch Die Hard at Warren Petty's house many times I did. So
it's a better movie to watch at Warren's house than Jim Cotta, so we'll give it to Die Hard.
Yes. No, this was definitely a step up than Jim Cotta. So.
That's fair. All right. Next up, we have Bad Boys, which Bad Boys 4, Bad Boys 5, I don't know, is coming out soon. I think
4. Yeah.
I saw some pretty wild stuff that Will Smith was doing where they have this camera rigged to him and the camera is rigged to the gun that is also on like a swivel.
Yes, I saw that as well.
That's pretty dope. That's some cool cinematography, but that's not in Bad Boys 1, which is a mid movie.
Yeah.
Versus Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We don't need to keep talking about this one.
Classic movie.
The best of the Indiana Jones movies.
Classic.
It's like, okay, maybe you could make the case for Raiders, but like, for my money, it's Last Crusade.
Yeah.
All right, now here, this is a hard one. True Lies. James Cameron, his big action epic starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, versus everyone's favorite, oh no, the Chuds didn't understand this movie, Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. For me, Verhoeven is a better director, and I would rather watch a Verhoeven movie over a James Cameron movie almost every day. I'm not as big of a James Cameron person as apparently the rest of the world is.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't take it away from you because I think both have a lot of really good merits. I enjoy True Lies more, but again, we gotta think about kind of timing when it came out, and so I would be fine giving it to Starship Troopers. Personally, I like True Lies more, but I have not seen either in a very long time.
Well, I'm giving it to Troopers then because I think Starship Troopers is ridiculous.
I'm okay with that.
I watched it relatively recently, and it's a banger. It's still really good. Verhoeven is just a really good director. He thinks more than most action directors do, and that makes for good movies. All right, next up, we have John Wick, the first John Wick, versus Hot Fuzz, action comedy. What do you think here?
I feel like John Wick probably needs to take it, but I really enjoy Hot Fuzz a lot.
I like Hot Fuzz a lot, too. You know that scene in Hot Fuzz where Nick, what is his name? The cop who was from that town shoots his gun into the air It's an homage to Point Break. There are many homages in Hot Fuzz to other. That's what they're doing there. They're explicitly invoking Point Break. And there's a lot in that movie. Hot Fuzz is one of those movies that the more you know about 70s to 90s action cinema, the more you get out of it. But John Wick's a stone cold classic. Like, it came out and everyone was like, oh, action movie. That's right. Action movies. They can be good. Because, it came out after years and years of superhero stuff being the name of the game. And we've talked about superhero movies. We like a lot of the superhero movies, but they eventually become CGI slugfests. That is not John Wick ever. Those are, there's a lot of practical effects happening and dudes shooting dudes a lot.
Yep.
It's good. It's real good. I haven't seen the third or the fourth. I should finish those watch those movies. All right. Next up, this one is, as much as I love one of these movies, it feels like a real easy one to me. We've got Edge of Tomorrow, a.k.a. Live, Die, Repeat, versus Desperado. And my head says Desperado should win because it's Robert Rodriguez coming into his own, but Edge of Tomorrow is one of the greatest action movies I've ever seen.
Edge of Tomorrow is in my top, 2 or 3, maybe if I'm really being picky, 4 or 5 sci-fi action movies, and maybe I just watched it again a month or so ago with my 14-year-old because I was like, dude, you have to watch this movie. And watching
It's
it
so
again,
good.
I was like, damn, son, this movie rules.
It's so good. And it was really hamstrung by that really boring ass name, which is why, as I joked, AKA, if you go look at this in physical media, everyone listening, it says Edge of Tomorrow in small print, but in big letters it says Live, Die, Repeat, which is a much better name.
Yeah.
That's a way better name. And honestly, both of them are worse than the name of the light novel series that it's based on, which is All You Need Is Kill. They should have just called it All You Need Is Kill, which is a great name, but regardless, such a cool movie. It is so good.
So
it is
good.
Tom Cruise at the apex of being kind of a shitheel that needs to figure it out. And I like that version of Tom Cruise because he feels like a shitheel in real life. So when he gets to do that when he's acting, it's like, oh yeah, you can do that because you are that. I like that movie a lot.
It's so good.
It's real good. All right, next up, we have Dirty Harry, the original Dirty Harry, versus Crank, the very, very wild movie from 2006. What do you think here?
I mean, I feel like Dirty Harry is so fundamental.
Yeah.
That I think it kind of needs to take it.
Here's the thing. If I'd have put Crank 2, I'd have fought you on it, but I put Crank. I didn't put Crank 2.
Okay.
I didn't put the one where he has poison in his system, so he needs to keep his heart rate high so it doesn't kill him for some reason. Don't worry. So he has sex with a lady while having gunfights because he needs to keep his heart rate high. It's very shoot 'em up. Have you ever seen the movie Shoot 'em Up? I did not put that on this list. But that's a wild movie.
I'm familiar with it, but I don't think I've seen it.
It's so wild. Monica Bellucci and Clive Owen having sex, and a huge shootout is happening while they're having sex. It's the weirdest movie I've ever seen. Not ever. It's a very weird movie. But Dirty Harry, like you said, foundational. Just one of reprehensible. When you watch it, you're like, oh, cops, right? ACAB. But it's also really good. All right, next up, we have Demolition Man, the Sylvester Stallone, early Sandra Bullock starring role, versus 1999's The Mummy, a.k.a. every millennial's bisexual awakening.
Mm-hmm. So
I mean,
look,
my gut
I think
says The
Demolition Man is a fun movie, and I think that there are some interesting things in it. But The Mummy is one of those movies that when I was especially in medical school, if I didn't know what to watch, I put on The Mummy.
Yeah.
And has anyone ever been more attractive on screen than Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz in that movie? I mean, have they?
There's a reason it's an entire generation's bisexual awakening, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone leaves that movie going, oh man, am I kind of into whatever gender I am because I'm attracted to these people?
I mean, yeah, that's a movie.
It's a movie. It's real good. I was talking with my friend at the comic shop. He's recently been rewatching the Mummy movies. Apparently, the second one also still holds up. I haven't seen the second one in years.
It does.
The third
second one holds
not good.
Up. Third one never was good. Third one never. Look, when you can't get Rachel Weisz back,
you write her out. You don't recast her.
You don't. No, it's exactly. You do not recast. You shouldn't have made the movie. You shouldn't have made the movie.
I haven't seen it since it came out. I have literally no memories of it. But yeah, my friend at the comic store was like, no chemistry. They got nothing. No juice.
I had a friend give me the DVD in residency, and I gave it back. And I had to, we got in a fight about which of us was going to leave the hospital that day with the Mummy 3 DVD.
You could have just thrown it in the round filing cabinet and taken care of it.
Pretty sure that's actually what ended up happening.
Sorry, Jet Li. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, next up. This is unfair. You saw me randomize this 8 times.
I did, multiple
There's
times.
no world where these two movies should be going up against each other. Both of these movies are incredible 70s action flicks, dark, gritty, great action flicks that have been remade more weekly, but still the remakes are also pretty okay of both these movies. We have The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 versus Assault on Precinct 13. This is so unfair to me. To me personally, this is an attack. I am attacking myself.
Well, the good news is you get to decide because I haven't seen either of them.
Damn it. I wanted your way. You should watch both these movies. You should watch both these movies. They're good. They're really good. What is his name who is the main detective in Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3? He's the guy from Grumpy Old Men. Walter Matthau. He is so electric as that main detective. And just like how Dirty Harry was foundational to the genre, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 is foundational. I maybe enjoy Assault on Precinct 13 more to watch, but I'm giving it to Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Don't watch the remake first because it's not as good. It's Denzel Washington and John Travolta, and it's not as good. It's still entertaining, but the original is incredible. All right, and now another weird matchup here at the very end of our first round. We have Liam Neeson's career resurgence Taken versus Harrison Ford, a classic, The Fugitive.
I mean, this one's easy for me. It's The Fugitive.
That's because Taken's not good. It's well regarded. It is famous. Like I said, it rebirthed Liam Neeson's career, changed him from romantic leading man to action star hero, which is what he basically did for the next 15 years. But boy, is it not very good, especially when compared to The Fugitive, which is Tommy Lee Jones, Harrison Ford. Everyone's bringing it.
Oh, yeah.
Classic. All right, that's our first round. We are through our first round, and now it is time to move on to
We've got some interesting matchups here. So
it could be tough. Some of these are going to be tough. Some of these are going to be easy.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have Casino Royale versus Point Break. My heart says give it to Point Break.
I won't argue with you because, again, haven't seen either one.
Casino Royale's good, but I would rather watch Point Break.
There you go.
I think that's why it should win.
Need.
Now, see, this one's hard. Air Force One, another classic. One of those movies that, you could put it on and I'll have a dang good time. Or Escape from New York. This is unfair. We did this to ourselves.
It is. See, I'm leaning towards Air Force One, but I could be convinced either way.
I got to give it to Escape from New York, I think.
Right, like I say, I wouldn't argue with you. I would not argue with you.
If only because Assault on Precinct 13 was the other Carpenter film and we just kicked it off.
Oh, okay.
Carpenter needs to keep going a little bit.
All right.
Air Force One's very good, though. I remember when I was younger, I always thought it was supposed to be a Jack Ryan movie, but it wasn't a Jack Ryan movie because it felt like, well, of course Jack Ryan would become the president someday. And I think he did in those books. Man, Tom Clancy's not a very good writer, but I sure like those movies.
Heck yeah.
I hear that Jack Ryan show with Jim from The Office is not very good, but I've never seen it and I never will.
Yeah, I haven't either.
All right, next up we have Rush Hour versus Commando. What do you think on this one?
This is an interesting one.
It's
I
a
think
real
Rush
interesting
Hour is a really fun movie. I think that the action in it is excellent in, Jackie Chan's style. And I think that it is a legitimately funny movie. But I have such fond memories of watching watching Arnold Schwarzenegger movies with our dad. Because while our dad comes across as the mild-mannered, stake president, whatever that he always has been, he's got this streak where he really likes violent movies.
He likes a bang. He likes a shoot 'em up. He likes a bang bang. I think we got to give it to Commando.
Yeah, that's what my heart says.
All right, that's fair. Con Air versus Die Hard. It's Die Hard. Con Air's good. It's Die Hard.
It's Die Hard. It's Die Hard.
And that's gonna be a tough choice.
Ooh, that's a rough bracket there.
All right, next up, we have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade versus Starship Troopers. Indiana Jones needs to go on. Starship Troopers, I wish was able to go farther, but it's going up against one of Steven Spielberg's best movies. So, sorry,
Last
Verhoeven.
Crusade is fantastic.
You ain't got it like that. Next up, honestly, this shouldn't be as easy for me to decide as it is, but Edge of Tomorrow versus John Wick. Edge of Tomorrow takes it.
Again, as I said, Edge of Tomorrow, probably one of my very favorite movies.
That's gonna be a tough bracket next. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yes, because those are two of my favorite movies. Ooh. I mean, Dirty Harry and The Mummy, spicy. Dude.
The
Mummy, no question.
Screw you and your dumb Desert Eagle, Dirty Harry. Go to hell.
Yeah.
You feeling lucky? You weren't because you lost. All right, next up, we have The Taking of Pelham 123 versus The Fugitive. My head says Pelham 123, but my heart says The Fugitive.
Oh, my heart goes with The Fugitive too, so we got to pick it. Ooh, we got some. Boy, this next round has got some
rough.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's gonna be rough. Okay. We have in our what is this? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the Elite Eight
quarterfinals. Our quarterfinals.
Yeah. We have Point Break versus Escape from New York. As much as I like Point Break and as much as it has punched above its weight class here, I gotta give it to Escape from New York.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd agree with that.
Point Break's good, but it's not as good as Escape from New York. Catherine Bigelow ain't got it like Carpenter. And Keanu Reeves don't got it like Kurt Russell. Sorry, bro.
It's true.
All right, next up we have Commando versus Die Hard. Oof, this hurts my soul to think about. What are you thinking?
Well, you've heard me talk about my fondness for Commando. You've heard me talk about my fondness for Die Hard. When I think about these two movies, though, there are a lot more things that stick with me from Die Hard than Commando. I mean, You've got Arnold in Commando, and it's peak Arnold, but I mean, you've got Alan Rickman, you've got Bruce Willis, Bruce Willis going from, the moonlighting, the casual, love interest guy to all of a sudden a legitimate badass action star, and him walking down with blood, leaving bloody footprints behind from kicking. It's got to be Die Hard for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because here's the thing. Commando is prototypical, archetypical, big, dumb 80s movie. Muscly, beefy men with muscles fighting in big old set pieces. But Die Hard, in a lot of ways, is in conversation with and in opposition to what you see in those big, beefy 80s action movies, because Willis isn't beefy in that same way. He's just kind of a normal dude, and he's put in extraordinary circumstances, and it goes really poorly for him quite often. As you said, it all turns out okay in the end, but it's rough for him for a lot of that movie. So I like that Die Hard subverts a lot of the expectations of the 80s action genre right near the end of that decade and is in conversation with a lot of what came before and kind of building something new. So I think I got to give it to Die Hard. All right. I'm making you pick with this one because you said these are two of your favorite movies. We have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade versus Edge of Tomorrow. Rough. But you get a pick.
I love both of these movies, but I've got to give it to Edge of Tomorrow. I mean,
damn.
It was just, again, having watched it recently, it held up. And I mean, I know it's not that old, but it was so good. It was so good.
Who directed that movie?
Oh, shoot. I am trying to remember.
It's not a Doug Liman, is it?
I think it is.
Well, congrats to you, Doug Liman. You just beat a Steven Spielberg movie.
Well, so it was directed by Doug Liman. It was written by Christopher McQuarrie. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
He of many of the Mission Impossible
recent
movies
Mission
fame.
Impossibles. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's really good.
It's a good show.
Whew, here's another roughie, though.
Oh, man.
The Mummy versus The Fugitive.
Oh, I like The Mummy more, but I think The Fugitive is a better movie.
I think The Fugitive's a better movie. I've given it to The Fugitive.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Whew, what a semifinals here. We have Escape from New York versus Die Hard. And Die Hard wins, unfortunately.
I think so. Yeah, I think
as much as I love Escape from New York, Die Hard wins.
Oh, man.
And then we have Edge of Tomorrow versus The Fugitive.
Our final is going to be incredible. Oh, I mean, again, Edge of Tomorrow got to be it for me. I love The Fugitive. I think
go with
it's great. But I think Edge of Tomorrow is a more interesting story. And yeah, I got to go with it.
All right. So our final, dear listeners, is between Die Hard and Edge of Tomorrow. I was hoping it would come down to a nail biter like this. And brother, it has come down to a nail biter.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I know which movie I like more out of the two of these, but I don't know which one I think should win. I don't know. What do you think? Because I would be okay with either.
No, it's Edge of Tomorrow. I chose. I'm just choosing. It's Edge of Tomorrow.
That makes me feel good. That's the one I wanted to win.
It's the right choice.
My heart just felt happy.
Here's the thing. Die Hard's really, really good. I like Die Hard a lot. I watch it almost every Christmas with my wife. Mm-hmm. Edge of Tomorrow's better, question mark? I think it is. I think it might be.
It's so good.
It's really good. So,
that was incredible.
Listeners,
that was incredible.
That's our final, our nail-biting final between those 32 films. The best action movie of the 32 I picked at random from a list of 144 great action movies is Edge of Tomorrow, a.k.a. Live, Die, Repeat. Congratulations
to a real zero problems with that result.
You know, it might be controversial. There might be a lot of people who are like, how dare you not pick Die Hard? But I feel like we did the right choice for us. I think we followed our hearts. As well. And that's maybe the most important thing to do.
I agree.
Well, listeners, if you want to watch a good action movie, we just gave you a list of a whole bunch of really good ones and a few mid ones that I just put on the list for fun. But you could do a lot worse than just picking through some of those like quarter and semifinalists and watching some flicks, because there's a lot of good stuff there.
There is. There really is. So.
And thanks for indulging me in a goofy thing that we didn't have to think too much about, but got to enjoy in the moment.
I loved it. That was great. That was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun.
So it was.
All right. Well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new episode. If you think that we were crazy people for picking Edge of Tomorrow over Die Hard or any of the other matchups that you think we really chose wrong, feel free to reach out to feedback@themiddleofculture.com and let us know how we got it wrong. And otherwise, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Take care of yourselves, folks.
Bye.